New offers. The following content contains flashing lights, profanity, major spoilers, and a bit of salt or the certain company. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time, developed by Ubisoft Montreal. Not this one! Bad one. And released in November 2003 for the PC, Xbox, GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Game Boy Advance? Wow, okay. The game served as a reboot of the first Prince of Persia, originally released for the Apple II in 1989. A retro gaming classic developed by Jordan Mechner, which makes this game the first 3D iteration of the Prince. The first successful one. And we're about to see exactly why this game was a big hit in the very first episode of Tenku Review. The Sands of Time is a linear third-person action-adventure game. Essentially, the experience can be broken down into a series of giant rooms interconnected by corridors or open areas. These spaces are full of traps and platforms which you travel through more than mere 3D XYZ movement. You can grip ledges, jump from wall to wall, pillar to pillar, but if I had to pick one mechanic that I can safely say define the entirety of this game's platforming, I would call forth You can wall run both horizontally and vertically, which allows you to attain places that are far away from your jumping distance. And the Sands of Time is the first to include this stylish move. Technically, the first one was DMC2, but I don't think anyone remembers that about it. You parkour your way from room to room, climbing and wall running with malevolent architecture in the way trying to kill you. And the further you go, the more complex the levels get, requiring more skill to nimbly move your way through sections. The better you are at observing and controlling the prince, the faster you'll learn how to time your jumps and movement. And if you don't, you fall. Platforming segments are trial and error that you'll keep doing over and over until you reach the point of mastery. And once you get there, the game slowly starts shifting into a third-person parkour simulator, where you'll start chaining technique after technique, creating a sense of progression. But the fun doesn't just stop at parkour. Every now and then, you'll encounter the main goons of the game, sand monsters, which you'll have to skirmish with. You can attack with a basic combo, dodge, block, counter, and vault over enemies to almost instantly beat them. The first fights aren't really much of a challenge. However, as you progress, you'll notice that some moves start resisting certain techniques. Blue soldiers, for example, cannot be vaulted over without instantly getting knocked down. You'll have to find a workaround for that. My personal favorite is countering with the dagger button, which instantly absorbs them. Keep in mind that enemies don't fall that easily. You have to press the dagger button in their direction to suck them right into it. In doing so, you replenish your slots, which in turn lets you reuse your sand powers. You ever play Crash Bandicoot and fall and feel like when you play the Sands of Time and happen to die, you can turn the which saves you a lot of time. Now that's a revolutionary game design idea. You can undo up to 10 seconds of mistakes. So if you ever unintentionally fall or get cornered in a bad position, you can always rewind and save yourself from danger. Your powers aren't just limited to rewinding though, and as you go, you'll collect sand tanks that unlock more abilities which help you in combat. For example, you can slow down time, freeze enemies with dagger stab before you slice them in half. But the most badass of them is when you press the rewind and block button at the same time. And when you do, this happens. After finishing a fight, a sand vortex appears, which serves as both a save point and as an integrated hint system. Pretty handy for when you get stuck. Post every checkpoint, you're either greeted by more parkour or by a big puzzle room. Move boxes of pressure plates, pull levers, reflect lights off mirrors, move cranks while some guy with a strong British move cranks while some guy while some British guy is
the other one raises and lowers it.
Puzzles are a very small segment of the game. They're still nevertheless interesting to solve. To do so, you're given an observational tour of the room thanks to the well-designed camera placements, which act as a guide to different mechanisms. At around 20% of the game, the deuteragonist Farah joins in and becomes an essential part of puzzle solving. She can get to places you can't, open doors for you, get to places you can't, open doors for you. That's about it, really. Even if Farah is indispensable in some segments, she doesn't really add that much to the gameplay. Her presence is mostly felt somewhere else. Well, definitely not during combat. I mean, she does help a bit, but it's obvious they haven't been able to further develop her. Most of the time, she just stands there. As for the Dagger of Time, it doesn't really serve much of a purpose outside of platforming, except for the rewind. You can technically beat the entire game without the need for sand powers, but this is more of a nitpick. The real problems of the game are mainly present during combat. A question that raises itself is, why am I fighting the same enemies over and over? Because aside from their appearance and timing, the entirety of combat boils down to fight hordes of sand monsters, knock them down, absorb them, fight hordes of sand monsters, knock them down, absorb them, knock them down, absorb them, fight hordes. You can't smoothly switch between opponents and play aggressively because they tend to block most of your attacks, which completely sterilizes that swashbuckling one versus many effect. And if you start wondering if it improves later on, you're greeted by a classic case of I didn't have enough time to develop difficulty, so I'm just going to add more enemies and hope the player doesn't notice the lazy padding. Which not only is cheap, but is also f***ing frustrating. Look at this! Oh, and the lack of bosses doesn't really help with the repetitiveness of the combat segments. There are only two, and one of them is just a model swap of the soldiers with more health, which really diminishes the value of the already recurrent fighting experience. The only slight variety you get happens near the end of the game, where you unlock a sword capable of insta-kills. But by then, there's a tiny micro inconvenience you'll have to deal with, so it's not much, really. It's just the fact that you can't rewind anymore. You spent the entirety of the game impulsively throwing yourself in danger because you can, and then it's just taken away. And did I mention the part where you reach a room full of mystical doors that lead to God knows where without a clue in the world except for Farah constantly yelling, "I'm right here," until you somehow find out that the hint is... You get it? You get it now? It's the faint sound of someone taking a piss next door, that's the hint. But all of these flaws really do shrink in comparison to the gameplay's general feel. The level design, parkour, and combat are very novel, and the trial and error segments are made more accessible with the rewind. Combine this with a very forgiving and responsive control scheme, and you get a very enjoyable experience. The prince is spry, nimble, and easy to grasp, which creates a sense of dynamism, especially when you navigate through rooms or fight hordes of enemies. So in the end, these flaws are more like wasted potential. Keep in mind that playing the game with a controller is really recommended. It's obvious the mechanics were designed with both joysticks in mind, which makes the PC controls a bit weaker in comparison. But the game itself would not be as interesting if it weren't for... Our tale begins on the verge of the Persian Empire's invasion of India. Its treacherous vizier played a huge role by betraying his own kingdom and by delivering it to the hands of the enemy. We follow a young, nameless prince as he seeks to prove himself a valuable warrior in the eyes of his patriarch, King Shahraman, leading to him seeking and finding the Dagger of Time, an ancient artifact as a spoil of war. After their military victory, the vizier, Shahraman, and the prince go to a nearby allied kingdom called Azad, and there, calamity strikes its palace, when the vizier tricks the prince into releasing the sands of time. And everyone except 3 characters turn into sand creatures. The tale takes place in a medieval Middle Eastern setting, taking heavy inspiration from Alf Layla wa Layla, or 1001 Nights. The most obvious inspiration is the way the tale is structured.
Do you wish me to leave before finishing my story?
The writing makes it so we're more focused on the dynamic between our 2 protagonists. The prince, stubborn as ever, wants to undo his mistake, constantly distrusting the daughter of the Maharaja, who unluckily happens to express her will to seal the sands of time right after the deceptive vizier did.
I can undo what you have done.
Need that
that dagger to undo.
To undo what I have done.
As the story unfolds, our two protagonists start developing feelings for each other, but can't quite say it, as the antagonist tries to hinder their goal out of thirst for power. And as you play, you'll notice that the lonely feeling the prince gets at the beginning will slowly transform, first into an irritation towards Farah,
Tried to steal my dagger after I saved her life.
then again into full-on tsundere behavior.
I knew that hole was there. I just wanted to see if you knew.
His thoughts and emotions expressed through monologues that you hear every time you move away from his potential lover.
Of course, finding my way to the baths from here should be easy.
Good. I'll meet you there.
I'll just ask the first sand creature I run into. Could you direct me to the baths, please? Well, thank you. Don't mention it. I used to be a bath attendant back when I was alive.
As if the prince denies what he's experiencing,
I'll meet you at the baths. She orders me around as if I were a servant. Well, it stops now. From now on, she'll have to toe the line.
until he...
That is, assuming I can find her.
The dialogue took a melodramatic approach, occasionally interrupted by the prince's snarky yet realistic remarks.
Not everything is a trap, you know.
You know, not everything is a trap.
However, aside from FMVs, cutscenes, dialogue interactions, and the prince's thoughts in which he conflicts internally, the story doesn't interfere with the gameplay that much, except for the part where she runs with your stuff. It's a very solid and heartfelt tale covering themes like betrayal, greed, deception, and contrasting them with maturity, love, and trust, with Farah representing hope. Fast forward, or backward, with the prince retaining all his memories and the dagger of time. He rushes to the princess of India to warn her of the impending doom.
Look out!
No, I was just trying to warn her.
That's not how it happened.
Nah, that's the natural reaction. No, instead he recounts to her the entire tale until the vizier interrupts them for the final battle. The prince uppercuts the villain out the window, but the big bad guy knocks the prince down and prepares to enter a more powerful form.
Nope.
And while still experiencing feelings for Farah, who is completely detached from this man she just met, the prince tries to... Listen, I still think this scene fits the narrative. The prince and Farah went through so much that he still has lingering feelings for her, but they should have used a better camera angle to express his emotions. That way would have been cute, because this way is just... God, please stop looking at the knife like that. The story has one of the most poetic and bittersweet endings in video game history. The callback to her secret trust word, her reaction, and the camera zooming out at the end of the scene implying the prince instead left Farah to her amazement makes this one of the most iconic conclusions in gaming history. The writing isn't flawless, however, and a lot of time the story has to cover up for undercooked ideas, which led to many moments where the prince and Farah separate. And I know Farah is supposed to represent hope, but was it necessary to give her zero character development? Farah is too kind. She never distrusts or doubts the man who came as an invader.
It's all right. It's me.
And now, lo and behold, the main antagonist of the story, the causer of the calamity, the deceptive betrayer, the Grand Vizier of the Maharaja.
My planet needs me.
It's not his one-dimensionality that is bothering, no. It's the fact that he appears once at the beginning and then vanishes until the very end, which makes him a pretty forgettable villain. Now, if my memory is still intact, the Dagger of Time can rewind time, causing time to go back to correct untimely mistakes. So you know what should have happened when the prince opened the hourglass?
Give me the dagger.
I mean, sure, you can explain it by the I was too caught up in the chaos and panic around me that I forgot to remember to use my time manipulation powers. However, since Farah's permanent death is partly because the dagger was empty when she fell, there should have been a better reason for the prince not rewinding at that exact moment. It is still, despite all these flaws, a charming, original, and solid story. Not only does it integrate and shape the gameplay, thus making the entry more credible, but the world building and endearing characters only make you interested in knowing more, even if the tale is self-sufficient with a satisfying conclusion. However, for the game's story to succeed, there has to be a specific ambience that accompanies it, and that's exactly what we'll see in... Within seconds from launching the game, right after the intro videos, the first thing you hear is this music. The first thing you see is this frame. And the first thing you feel is a sense of intrigue, as if drawn to uncover what hides in this tropical rainforest. We haven't launched the game yet, and it's already blessing our ears and eyes, which says a lot about the art direction. Early concept arts reveal two things. First, that the art is more stylized than realistic, and second, that the prince could have looked like a black Sporticus. I think we missed out. The game's setting obviously means the locations and characters will adopt several cultural elements, with some of the most meticulously designed environments and architecture to this very date, directly adapting nature scenery and buildings from both the Islamic Golden Age and the Indian subcontinent, going as far as to include artworks scattered around the levels. I sometimes found myself pausing the gameplay entirely to wander around the areas, observing the different paintings, statues, and interior design. The Palace of Azad is the most faithful to the culture it borrows from, with domes, arabesque mosaics, arches, and even Arabic words. مستوى الماء افتح يا سمسم. What the f*** is Arabic doing in Persia? Whether the action takes place inside or outside, the whole game is painted in both warm and cold hues, all wrapped in soft lighting, and I'll just leave the images to speak for themselves. Another enriching touch has also been brought to the areas by significantly blowing them out of proportion in order to increase immersion, with each space adding a feeling of vastness, which not only makes the perfect place for a date, but also adds to the reward of the parkour. And when you add in the different perspective shifts whenever you cross certain areas, that's when I put up my right and left hand and say absolute cinema as I look at the dynamic image compositions that the prince traverses as their lead role. And since we mentioned the prince, it's about time to say that I've been holding myself since the start of the video to not talk about this, but now's the time, and you've guessed it, the prince's animations are just so... Backflips, rolls, wall runs, jumps, the monkey bars, the way he stumbles when you don't fall perfectly on a ledge, and especially combat. If it weren't for the prince's graceful moves, fighting would have been as interesting as DMC2's wall run. Fighting feels like a performance, a deadly dance which the prince executes to defeat his enemies. Go home, Geralt. The prince did it first. 700. That's right. Over 700 scripted animations have been programmed into the prince. All these little small motions and moves that make him look brimming with life. And a big part of the gameplay's reward stems from seeing all the animations play out on screen, like when the prince sheathes his sword after beating two scarabs. The whole game sweats that 90s, early 2000s cool action flick, which only adds to the charm. From start to finish, the game can be completed in one go. It feels like a long sequence shot with only the cutscenes interrupting. And this is thanks to dynamic loading, a technique which pre-renders entire segments as you approach them. But the cultural richness of this game doesn't just stop at the visuals. It also had to bless our ears with some of the best audio design to date. One of the weirdly memorable moments during gameplay are when you drink water, which triggers this.
Ew, I just stepped in that puddle of water.
You what?
I just stepped...
The most interesting part about sound is of course the musical score, which crosses the electric guitar with music and instruments from India and the Middle East, which created some of the most fire beats for the prince to fight to. When you're not listening to these absolute bangers, most of the times you'll be immersed in the sounds and ambience of each area you visit. Not to mention the brilliant performance by the voice actors, especially Yuri Lowenthal, who completely stole the show with his compelling narrative voice.
Or at least humility at the speed with which a world can be transformed from a good world into a hell? Well, if you think so, you are mistaken.
The 3D was done in the in-house Jade engine, originally developed for Beyond Good and Evil. Another gem. The VFX, modeling, and physics also received utmost care. Every region you cross is covered in golden dust. When the prince moves, small particles of the environment could be seen spilling or dripping from his boots. The fabric physics also feel very silky, twisty, foldy, which is pleasant to look at. There's almost nothing negative I could say. The PlayStation 2 and GameCube audio are compressed and there are a few bugs here and there, but that's really about it. Despite the limited technology of that time, every single element has been well thought and executed until the very end. Perhaps some models and animations aren't that good looking, but the only reason it seems like they suck is because the prince is standing right there looking that fabulous. Glitches are rare and thankfully not game-breaking, though you have to cap the game to 60 FPS, or else the game physics break. And yet these are but technical imperfections when it comes to the bigger picture that is the art of this game. It's safe to say that it is a timeless cultural classic that knew how to merge different aesthetics in a fantastic universe. If it's not the visual prowess that will give you goosebumps, then the music certainly will. And you'll find yourself coming back again and again to just contemplate its beauty. Now, since the gameplay, story, and art are this refined, all that's left is the impact. Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time went on to become one of the greatest games of all time, praised by critics and players alike for its original art direction, story, and novelty gameplay. The entry revolutionized platforming to the point that its influence can be felt in entries like God of War, Mirror's Edge, and of course Assassin's Creed. To this very day, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time remains a reference in gaming, and I would even go as far as to say that it's better in its game design than a lot of recent entries. And this isn't nostalgia speaking. I played the game twice before judging. The success would later span 2 follow-ups, The Warrior Within and Two Thrones, for a full trilogy, and even a remake that started development back in 2020. And although the art style of the trailer is not convincing, there's still hope that it retains the essence of the original. I personally am a huge enjoyer of the game and played it way back in 2011 on the PlayStation 2. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta go buy the remake. At first I was irked when I heard the news, but I gave it some thought, and I'm pretty sure that executives are doing what they can to help their companies survive and just keep making good games, you know. So in defense of Ubisoft, I'd like to say, what kind of sadistic donkey gobbling piece of senile corporate would think it would be a good idea to cancel it?
Oh, we apologize for not releasing the game. We're just gonna start focusing on open world experiences.
Oh, you mean like the success that was AC Shadows? Capcom did it, Bethesda did it, so why the would you cancel the one entry that could have saved your company from going downhill? Go yourself, Ubisoft. Your corporate slop will never impress anyone anymore. Glad I got that out of my system. So yes, it got cancelled along with a number of other games after 6 years, which ruined the breakthrough role of a voice actress, left the fans enraged, and cost Ubisoft a lot on the stock market. And for the last part, it's kind of deserved. Until then, I guess we'll have to wait for Prince of Persia to receive the care that it desperately deserves. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If so, subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content and come join me on Twitch. I usually do playthrough streams at around these hours. I'm currently doing a Dark Souls challenge run. GG. Check the description for all the sources if you'd like to read more, and also for the camera mod that I used to frame these beautiful shots. As for then, I wish you good night, sweet dreams, and rendezvous in the next video or live stream. Peace out.